For mine, the Olympic Games and being an Olympic champion is the greatest honour in world sport. I think it is the number one crown. Being an Olympic champion, I think, is atop every other sport in the world.
Hey folks, there's an awesome end of season footy tournament happening in Thailand later this year, and you don't want to miss this one. The Australia's number one globally touring Masters football club, the Slugs, they're playing an end of season footy tournament in Phuket on October 26th. It's for over 35s, and it's a 12-a-side one-day tournament involving teams across Asia at the beautiful Alan Cook Ground, one of the truly unique sports grounds in the world. It's where Masters footy meets paradise. For more details, check out the Southern Slugs Football Club Facebook page and get involved. Thank you so much to our new sponsor, the Woodville Districts Basketball Club. They compete in South Australia's junior and senior basketball competitions. They're one of just 10 member clubs in Basketball SA's competitions. They provide complete pathways from 6-year-olds to seniors to state and national representation, and I happen to be their coordinator. Well, what a pleasure it is to have Jason Richo Richardson on Sports Legends With Bevo for the first time.
Bevo, wonderful to be with you, mate. I've heard the word legends and I've had a look at some of the people you've interviewed, so don't know why the bloody hell you're interviewing me.
Oh, you're way too modest, mate. Anyone that wins a Stawell Gift is a legend, in my opinion. So,
oh, gee, you're easily amused then and easily impressed. But, mate, great to be part of the show.
Now, obviously, we've got the Olympics happening at the moment, and you've been a big part of that in the past, Jace. So, what's your favourite events you're looking forward to at the Paris Olympics this time round?
Oh, track and field, first, second, and third. I mean, I'm enjoying everything that's going on at the moment in swimming and in Jess Fox's great work in the canoeing and the like. But for me, the Olympics is the track and field because that's the event that there is over 200 nations competing. It is, a truly a bit like the basketball and also football, world football, even though it's under 23s for the men, so that's disappointing. But women's football, basketball, and men's and women's track and field, they are a real global sport. So they're the ones I love the most.
Yeah, wonderful, mates. And you've been a part of the Olympics I mentioned before. What's been some of your favourite memories in the past and being involved in it?
Oh, I've been lucky enough to attend many. I think I was a young backpacker in Barcelona in 92. I was a track athlete, a pretty poor track athlete in 96 and 2000, and my girlfriend and then wife competed in both 96 and in 2000. And then once I got into the broadcasting world, I had the great privilege of broadcasting the last 4 Olympic Games, last 2 winters and last 2 summers. So incredible memories. I think being there up close and personal at an Olympic Games is the ultimate. I mean, Tokyo was so unique, wasn't it? You were probably sitting at home on the couch like everyone else in lockdown, various parts of Australia. So, I mean, the audience we had was literally unbelievable. But for mine, the Olympic Games and being an Olympic champion is the greatest honour in world sport. I think it is the number one crown. Being an Olympic champion, I think, is atop every other sport in the world.
Yeah, I think you've nailed it absolutely there, Jason. I was doing my research and watching some other interviews you've done in the past as well, and I believe that you actually got your break into the media world through Oakley when you were doing some sales work back as part of the 2000 Olympics. Was it right in saying you set up something with at Bondi with the 2000 Olympics with some of the athletes there? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. So I was marketing manager for the Asia Pacific region with Oakley sunglasses. Remember back in the 2000s, a lot of people, whether it be cricket in particular, which we were massive on, whether it be Shane Warne or Dean Jones and the like, always competing in sunglasses, and then also cyclists in the world. So I was the marketing manager for Oakley, and we approached the RSL, believe it or not, and set up a safe house for the athletes, something that still goes to this day with Oakley throughout various parts of the world. Wherever there is Olympic Games, Oakley sets up a little safe house where athletes can come and chill out, get out of the village, catch up with other sponsored athletes, have a lot of fun. For us in Sydney, we got some of the best surfers in the world, set up North Bondi RSL Club like a surf hut. The athletes, if they would finish, this was back in the days, Bevo, when you didn't get booted out of the village, you could sit and enjoy an Olympic Games, and they could come to the Oakley House, they could go for a surf. We put on, breakfast, lunch, dinner. We put on music acts. It was a great time to be alive in Sydney. You would have been, where were you watching the Sydney Olympics?
Yeah, it would have been in Adelaide back in 2000, mate. So what's that, 1980? 20 years old. Can't believe it.
Well, you would have been fresh and you would have been magnificent. So I actually got my start in media because I did approach a mate of mine, Matthew White, who's been one of the great sports broadcasters and hosts. I used to be sponsor of Matty, used to give him sunglasses, believe it or not, when he was being a media star around. And I brought he and the whole Sports Tonight. You might remember that as a young guy watching Sports Tonight on Channel 10
loved it. With Tim Webster
loved it. Absolutely loved Sports Tonight. Yeah. So I approached him and said, hey, why don't you set up a camera at the Oakley House and I'll make sure all the athletes come through and then you can sit down and do interviews with them and the like. Oh. Anyway, I'm chatting away and presenting this case to Matty and also the EP. And the EP liked a bit of my flavour and said, well, why don't you just pretend you're interviewing Matty now? So then I went into a bit of show mode, if you like, and had a bit of a chat to Matty and he goes, stuff it, we're not going to send a reporter, you can do it. So I got my big break, believe it or not, in the Sydney Olympics doing reports for Sports Tonight on Channel 10, and then that morphed into, they gave me a hosting role on a show called Inside Sport TV, which didn't last very long. And then that sort of just started to snowball that interest, and eventually I started my own business and then morphed into media full time.
Amazing. Well done, Jason. Let's get back to the early days, because you had a real passion for running, as we talked about before. You won a 93 Stawell Gift, and you also played footy at a pretty high level as well. Tell us more about those early days growing up, and did you have siblings as well with some sporting rivalries in the backyard, or?
Yeah, absolutely. Older sister, a younger brother. I've got so much to thank my mum in particular. Loves sport. So that was back in an era, of course, when you had one TV. Remember those days? You had one TV, so who could control the remote? We had free-to-air TV, that was it. So we as a family just consumed sport. So I was in the backyard in summer, obviously playing cricket, running around everywhere, and also playing footy in winter and watching a lot of sport. I wanted to be, my theory when I was a young guy, I said I either want to play AFL football for the Carlton Football Club, kick a goal after the siren to win a premiership, or I want to run the 100 metres in the Olympic Games for Australia, or I want to commentate on an Olympic Games or an elite sport and be like Bruce McAvaney. So I failed in the first two. I get to work with Bruce every week on 7 horse racing, and I'm about a hundredth as good as him.
What about your sister? Was she into sport as well?
She loved it. And so did my younger brother. We all loved it growing up. They didn't really pursue sport like I did. I mean, I had the great privilege after winning the Stawell Gift, believe it or not, that I then did a lot of training with Cathy Freeman. So I actually, and the fact that my girlfriend was part of the Australian team as well, and I was sort of just that little tier below, but I was sort of in the mix for, not far off sort of relay sort of selection and the like. I travelled a lot overseas and literally lived the dream. What I always wanted to do was be, live as a full-time professional athlete. So after I won the Stawell Gift as a young guy, I gave up work, just went and did a bit of part-time uni, and then just literally travelled the world. I don't know if you've seen the Netflix at the moment, a little series called Sprint. So, I lived that world for 3 or 4 years. It was absolutely brilliant. Oh, look, I was horrible. I was nowhere near good enough. And, got to run against, whether it be Michael Johnson or Carl Lewis or Linford Christie, Ben Johnson. They all had something in common, and that is I only ever saw the back of them because off they took.
Oh, how good though to be able to compete against those sort of guys. Amazing.
Oh, it's brilliant. You know what? I love elite sport. That's why I love the Olympic Games. When you see athletes in any sport, be on the start line and they've worked, 12, 16 years to get to that moment. And can they deliver on the biggest stage in that moment? That is just, you imagine the pressure I just love celebrating the stories behind. I mean, you think about Ariane Titmus is just so massive at the moment, isn't she, in Australia? And, to defend the 400-metre freestyle title is unbelievable. But think about her parents. So Ariane's like, she's 14 years of age. She's a talented young swimmer in Tasmania, and a talent scout says, this kid is really, really good, but she's never going to make it if she's in Tassie. She needs to be in Queensland. She needs to be in a better environment, a more elite environment. We'll set that up. Can you imagine being the parents? I mean, Steve Titmus was a TV news host, a sports host down in Tassie, says, rightio, we are going to back in our daughter, sells the family home, moves the whole family up to Queensland. I mean, that is an unbelievable commitment. So she at the moment gets all the glory, and we love that. But I actually think about all the stories, all the years to build up to that magic moment. I mean, it's incredible. And that's what elite sport does, Bevo, those great stories. I mean, you've interviewed the likes of Stewie O'Grady, a great mate of mine. I mean, think about the background of him as a young guy growing up, always around cycling through Brian and the like. So when he's standing on the top of the dais and getting a yellow jersey in the Tour de France, that's actually a 16-year journey. I love celebrating those stories, mate.
Yeah, so well. That's such a great way of looking at it, because you kind of forget the amazing, sacrifices that parents make for their children. And I'm really glad you said that as well, Jay. So I totally agree with you. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about as well, because I've got a younger brother and sister, and growing up, I don't know if you had something similar with your brother or sister, but we used to love watching the Uncle Toby Super Series. And me and my brother would have pretend I'd be Guy Leach and he'd be Trevor Hendy, and we'd actually race. We had a swimming pool, so we'd do our own races. We'd have the swim. We'd have we'd jump on one of those inflatable bananas and pretend we're doing the paddle and stuff like that, and run around the block. And did you ever do that with your brother and sister as well? Or?
Oh, absolutely. Isn't that a great example, though? I mean, how big it was when we were growing up. So you think about the power of free-to-air TV. At the moment, free-to-air television is one thing and one thing only, and that is live sport, because that's the one thing that you can't, unless you just turn off all your devices and live in a hole. If Carlton's playing Collingwood, if you don't want to look at the result and you want to save it and go home and watch it that night, then you've got to turn off every device going around. Don't talk to anyone and live under a rock, because. So therefore, free-to-air TV is so important for live sport. And you've just given a great example. The moment that sport went off free-to-air TV, off to a subscription service, if you like. So I don't think kids nowadays know any of the names like we did when we would. You've just mentioned, Trevor Hendy, Guy Leach. You think about Clint Robinson. Before them was Grant Kenny. I remember Phil Clayton. Clayton always used to get out to a lead. Craig Riddington, Carla Gilbert, Linda Hartwig. The list goes on of people that you can think straight off the top of your head, because we saw it every Sunday during summer. It was great.
Yeah, it was the best, wasn't it, back in those days as well, with Bruce hosting Sports World and Rexy and the Sunday Footy Show with all those maniacs as well, like Maxie Walker and Lou Richards. And
it was World of Sport was the show, a little before that era, where so many of those talented people first got their break. And you think about that now. Could you imagine a show in Australia? Man, I'd just love it if it could possibly come back, that started at 11 o'clock and finished at 2 in the afternoon or 2:30 or whenever they possibly stopped talking. And they basically just had panels of discussion on various sports and had special guests come in. It wasn't really produced TV, but by gee, it was compelling. And we would play sport first thing Sunday morning. I played footy a lot as a kid. You'd play once on Saturday, you'd play once on Sunday. You'd finish as early as you possibly could. You'd dash home, you have Sunday lunch, you sit down, you watch World of Sport into the Swans playing on a Sunday, or you watch in the summer, you're watching cricket, and I'm sitting there like a full nerd scoring test matches, or you're watching the Uncle Tobys. I mean, it was brilliant to be a young kid in Australia in those times.
No, absolutely spot on. And I want to get back to Cathy in 2000 Sydney Olympics, having spent that time running with her and getting to know her so well. What that means to you to see her win gold, Jace?
Oh, God, it was incredible. The pressure. I mean, she is such a treasure. She's a beautiful person to be around. She's she's complicated, yet she's uncomplicated. And that sounds bizarre, but she's an overthinker, yet at the same time, she has the ability to break down something really, really simply. She applies herself unbelievably well, had the ability to get her head around the fact that she needed to run around a track as fast as she could once. That was how she got her mindset into it. To carry the hearts and the minds and the hopes of the nation was unbelievable. She kept it a secret that she was going to light the cauldron. To light that cauldron, I mean, the build-up, I travelled with her in 97 and 98. So she won a silver medal in 1996 behind Marie-José Perec. She ran 48.63 on that occasion. And then in 97, we travelled over to El Paso, Texas. We based ourselves there for about 6 or 8 weeks of intensive training, and then off to Europe she went. Remember then, that was when she shaved her head
Yes.
and won a gold medal from the inside lane in 1997. That was incredible. She was injured in 98. She came back and won a world title in 99. So she was a 2-time world champion. Perec was probably close to retiring by then. There was a lot of scuttlebutt about Perec arriving and then disappearing into Sydney. I mean, Perec was never going to be one of the major dangers. She wasn't in shape for many years, but Catherine was. And that day and that night, I should say, is a night. I mean, I was privileged enough to be there. I think I was amongst 110,000, but if you ask anyone, it feels like there's about 250,000 that were there that night. But I was privileged to be there. I was at about the 250 mark, if you like, 150 to go. And when she came past me and started to really accelerate, you knew they weren't going to beat her. And it was a combination of pride, emotion, but relief. And I think Raylene Boyle summed it up so well in her commentary with Macca. What a relief. And it was such a relief that she got to win the medal that she was so desperate to win for Australia.
And like you said, so beautifully called by Bruce as well. You could listen to that call over and over again. So
he's just a marvel, isn't he? He's just a joy to be around. I mean, his level of research is, of course, it's legendary, isn't it? And I come from the school. I describe myself from the school of McAvaney, because when you're standing next to him, when you're doing a broadcast, whether it be the Melbourne Cup or the Cox Plate or the Everest or the Golden Slipper, I pride myself in doing a power of research, but I know that I've only done 1/10 of what he has. But, I don't want to be like him, because there's only one him and you can only be yourself. I've got to be the best version of myself alongside him and try to bring something different to the broadcast that he's bringing. But I just marvel at some of the things that he has taken the time and effort to do the research to add that little extra layer for the Australian audience.
It's amazing that you mentioned that, because last year, Richo, I was lucky enough to interview him while I was part of the Bay Sheffield coverage, doing some emceeing there. And
right.
And it was just an absolute honour to just chat to Bruce, even just for 5 minutes. And after I chatted with him, he was just talking about the event, and you're so correct. Like the way he just remembers all these times from runners from 10, 15 years ago, who finished where, and he's just an absolute freak. And it must make you feel so proud being able to work alongside him, as you mentioned before, growing up as your idol, to actually work with Bruce now as part of the racing coverage. That just must be amazing for you.
It is absolutely incredible, and it's not lost on me, and I never take it for granted. I can remember as a young kid sitting there watching the 1991 World Track and Field Championships from Tokyo, when Carl Lewis was slowly away and then charged through the field to break the world record and win the world title, and the way Bruce described it and called all the action. And if he had said to me in 1991, hey, mate, in 20 years' time or 30 years' time, you and Bruce are going to be sitting in a commentary box on various sports and broadcasting it together, I would have said, you're crazy. I mean, I grew up, in many ways, he was the soundtrack of our youth, wasn't he? Because in every sport, brilliant race caller. And I mean, simply the best track and field broadcaster ever to walk on the planet. Great footy caller. I mean, there's no sport that he can't put his hand to. We know that. But at the moment, later in his life and later in his broadcasting career, he's given up everything, but just concentrated on the two things that he loves the most, and that is athletics, and that can be whether it be, broadcasting for the ABC at the moment for the Olympic Games, or covering the Australian Track and Field Championships, or covering the Stawell Gift or the time-honoured Bay Sheffield Gift. He absolutely loves it, and his other great love, of course, is horse racing. So it's an absolute joy to be around him.
And let's go back to your own running journey, Jay. So winning the 93 Stawell Gift, and also being part of a pretty illustrious company. You're one of only two people to do something very special, which I'll get you to mention.
Yeah, well, both John Dinan and I are the only two in history to win the 100 metres, the novice, if you like, the 100 metres called the Bill Howard handicap 1 year, the Stawell Gift the next year, and then to do the full circle and win the backmarkers, which is the collection of the best athletes at the carnival the following year. So 3 years in succession. So John Dinan and I have that great record together. That's something that we're both proud of. We would love someone to join us, because our annual golf day is getting a bit boring, and our annual tennis day as well, because I've got him covered in all aspects. So we need a few more people to join our club, but I don't know if that's going to happen for a little while yet. But the Stawell Gift's such a, it's a brilliant event. I don't know, Bevo, if you have an opportunity to watch it every Easter Monday on Channel 7. I mean, we over 1 million Australians tune in every Easter Monday. It's so unique. It's been going for 150 years, and they come from everywhere. And the betting element is still there to a degree, but it's about the prestige of winning on the hallowed turf of Central Park Stawell. I mean, it's so unique. Hopefully we'll announce some big international competitors coming for the 2025 one. It's a little like the Bay Sheffield Gift that you've been to. I love the Bay Sheffield. I won a backmarkers race at the Bay Sheffield as well, which was one of my things that I cherish the most, considering some of the quality athletes in the field. But I was runner-up in a Bay Sheffield Gift, and it still bloody annoys me that I couldn't catch Ryan Whitnish in 1993.
I think the Stawell's a pretty good achievement, though. So
yeah, well, I'd won that before, so therefore I was obviously handicapped at the back, but still would have been great to do the double like Dean Capobianco and Steve Brimacane were able to do that. So that was my dream, but runner-up, and couldn't quite get the job done like they could. But to be fair, they were a fair bit better than me.
You're right. It's such an amazing event, the Bay Chef, and obviously it's been such a big part of the racing calendar in SA for a number of years. And to be a part of it last year as the MC for the first time, I just couldn't believe just how well organised the event was, and just how friendly the racing community is as well. Like, I got to interview all these athletes, and they were just so great giving up their time.
Oh, that's fantastic, mate. And I don't, you hate to say it back in my day, but I look at the crowds now and think, oh, geez, wouldn't it be great to be back to the levels that it was back in the day, in the 90s, if you like. I mean, the Bay Sheffield Gift the atmosphere was like no other, because you're so close at Collie Reserve there. But still, I think everyone's doing a great job trying to get it back to its absolute best. And I love that it was live streamed this year. I'd love to get back there one year and go and watch it in action. So I might see you there one day, Ben.
Sounds like a plan. And your lovely wife, Kate, you met her through racing. Explain how that story eventuated.
I actually met her through uni. So we were studying sports science together at Deakin, and we were in an interesting class. David Parkin set up a sports science course, and he sort of cherry-picked a couple of athletes from different sports with the idea of trying to educate them in that area. So, David Schwartz and Nick Holland were the two AFL boys, and Brad Hodge was there from a cricket point of view, Simon Garlick as well from a AFL point of view. The list goes on, and I was, and so was Kate. Little did we know, we didn't know each other then. We're the random track and field athletes that decided to go down that road. So we met at uni, and then we saw each other on the circuit. Naturally, she was, gobsmacked with my, unbelievably good looks. So she quickly fell in love with me. And we're very, we've been together a long time, and we've got 3 beautiful daughters.
And have the daughters gone down that same athletic path as well, Richo, or?
They're all very, very athletic. The eldest 2 represented Australia in gymnastics, which was fantastic. But they gave that up in their sort of middle to late teens. That's the nature of this sport. And they were both very, very proficient in all various sports, but it's actually been the youngest, Cleo, who is, yeah, she's being a fantastic young track athlete, taking after her mum, running in the 800 and the 1500, and she's just been selected for Australia to race in. She's only 17, but she'll be in the World Under 20 Championships over in Peru in 30 days' time. So we are going over to sit in the crowd like two proud parents and put on our Australia t-shirt and give her a cheer.
That is amazing. All the very best to Cleo over there. Hopefully we'll see her competing in the Olympics or Commonwealth Games one day, Richo.
Yeah, well, my wife was good enough to go to 2 Olympic Games and win a Commonwealth gold medal. So, Bevo, what I've found now is with Cleo's efforts, I've dropped down to the 3rd best athlete in my family.
Well, you're doing very good things in the broadcasting perspective. And speaking of that, you're a big part of the Big Bash coverage. How did that first come about? And perhaps tell us a couple of stories about, working with some of the amazing cricketers, some of the best players of all time, and who's really left you starstruck in the commentary box there, Jace?
Yeah, cricket, I've always been an absolute cricket tragic, whether more as a fan and a real fan boy growing up. I did play cricket, but because of my athletics, it was one of those, those classic times when, you'd have one winter sport and you'd have a summer sport. And for me, as much as I loved cricket, I was doing athletics at a reasonable level. So I didn't have time to do cricket, but I absolutely loved it and think of nothing better than spending a day sitting on the couch scoring test matches. So absolutely obsessed by cricket growing up. And also through my previous job at Oakley Sunglasses, I got to know that era of players because I had signed sponsorship deals and negotiated deals and then worked one-on-one with Shane Warne, Ricky Ponting, Matthew Hayden, Justin Langer, Damien Martin, Andrew Simons, Jason Gillespie, the list goes on, Damien Fleming, Greg Blewett. All these guys were all contracted Oakley guys that I was constantly dealing with. And then once Seven earned the rights of the cricket rights, I put my hand up and said, love to be involved, a huge cricket nut. They put me through my paces and said, oh, okay, yeah, well, you like what you're doing there. The fact that I had a relationship with a lot of those guys and I'd stayed in touch with them was a big, big advantage. So, Ricky Ponting and Matthew Hayden, in particular, Ricky's been absolutely fantastic at his support, Greg Blewett as well. I've had a great pleasure of working in with these guys. Now, I'm the lead caller, so my job is describe what we're seeing, but allowing plenty of room for the experts to analyse the game. So we very much keep to those specific roles. No one wants to hear my opinion on the cover drive of a certain player, but they want to hear from Ricky Ponting. And of course, I pinch myself at times when I'm there with Rick and Bluey and just listening in to them having pre-show, during the game, and then post-show when we go back and have a quick beer or something after it. I am just listening in at some of their great, great stories. It is a lot of fun. There's a few pinch me moments, I can assure you of that. And a lot of them, as you would imagine, Bevo, in Australia, a lot of them are classic tragic punters. So they tend to want to talk to me about horses all the time, and I'm wanting to talk to them about cricket.
Well, you mentioned a couple of my past guests as well. Yeah, Bluey and Dizzy Gillespie, such ripping blokes.
Oh, yeah, fantastic. Big news, obviously with Jason Gillespie going to now being coach of Pakistan. That's a loss for Australian cricket, a loss for the Saka as well, for South Australian cricket. And Greg Blewett, the glamour boy, everything he does with just style, doesn't it? Whether it be playing golf off one or two. And that's one of the great conversations, is listening to the banter between Blewett and Ponting after a pre-cricket match game of golf that they've played. I'm an absolute hacker, so I won't put myself through playing with them, but I just love listening to them. The rivalry they have on the golf course is elite.
I absolutely love that. And just to finish with, have you got a couple of embarrassing stories that you can share of yourself in the com box there, Richo?
Always embarrassing stories. Everything when I open my mouth is constantly embarrassing. It's interesting, Bevo. You're embarking on a broadcasting career. I think my advice to young broadcasters is you're going to make mistakes. Now, the quicker you bury those mistakes, mentally and emotionally, the better you'll be. It's hard in a social media world now. And we saw the great race caller in Greg Miles, who had a horrible flu, and he took some flu medication, and his heart rate rose during a Caulfield Cup, and he called Magnolian Khan on 4 or 5 occasions, and the abuse he got on social media was unbelievable, and it put him into a spiral, of disappointment about it, and he had to turn off social media, and it was probably the start of the end when he said, listen, I don't want to be a broadcaster anymore. So there's a lot of embarrassing moments out there, Bevo. The key for a young broadcaster, you'll make a mistake, learn from it, deep breath, push on, have faith in yourself, and maybe turn off social media so you don't reflect on it at all.
I think you're absolutely spot on there. Yeah, social media has its positives, but there's certainly a lot of people out there, those keyboard warriors, that can be pretty harsh, and you'd love to see them have a go at it, wouldn't you? Just to
well, I work in a very unique space, as well as in the broadcasting space of horse racing, where they ask me for my tips. I put time and effort and research into that, and there's 18 horses in the field, and I've tipped some horse at $18 and it's got second, and then I get trolled on social media about how it didn't win, and you're like, gee, I tell you what, okay, fair enough. I want to see the same trolling when the football experts get it wrong in a 2-horse race.
Yeah, exactly. Geez, people can be harsh.
Oh, it's classic. But you know what? I've learned to have a thick skin, whether it be on radio, TV, through social media. I think there'll be a lot of people who can criticise some of the things that come out of my mouth, but hopefully they never criticise the level of preparation I've done, or the level of enjoyment I'm having broadcasting sport. I consider myself extremely privileged.
Well, speak of enjoyment, it's been an absolute blast to have you today, Jason Richo Richardson, on Sports Legends with Bevo. Thanks for giving up your time, mate. Keep up the great work. I absolutely love your commentary, and I'm sure lots of people out there agree with me as well.
Thanks, mate. I'll look around to find that legend that you're talking to. I don't know who he is, but great pleasure.